So, welcome everyone to HackMasters 2030. This is presented by the FST Student Committee in partnership with Animekon, and we're going to get right into it. Of course, before we do that, I presented myself. We have our FST Student Committee CMP chairperson, Mr. Isaiah Carrington. So he can just say hi or turn on his camera and say hi.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. And we have our computer science representative, Mr. Keyshawn Waldron. So he can also turn on his camera and say hello.
Good night, everyone.
Okay, so let's get right into it. So, HackMasters 2030. Okay, so we're gonna go over the overview, team requirements, the schedule, of course, your prizes, code of conduct, and guidelines. So we'll get right into it. What is HackMasters 2030? So HackMasters 2030 is a 6-week event at UWKFL, and it's focused on transforming your ideas into gamified learning tools, video games. So HackMasters 2030 aims to educate and sensitize students about the world's most pressing problems. And as well, in order to do that, your video game would then be turned into a profitable product, therefore through monetization, commercialization. So therefore, you would undergo business development, but as well, you're taking your video game from the idea stage into a learning tool through gameplay and interaction that makes learning fun for the student through software development. So therefore, you guys would undergo both business and software development processes, both in the training and actual creation, to make your ideas profitable. So I will now take over to Keyshawn, who will continue. Is this working? Okay. Go right ahead, Keyshawn.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. So, after the team submission period has closed and each team has finalized the 1 to 3 sustainable goals that they want to use to create the gamified learning solution, which addresses the topics chosen, once you have brainstormed the problems for the topic that was chosen, you can then also create a presentation to be delivered virtually where you present the problem and solution. And it's also important that you consider the audience that you have, because the mission of this all is to help you to develop a captivating learning solution. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, let me say, for instance, that you choose a topic from the Sustainable Development Goals, such as world hunger. The game that you create doesn't have to straight out solve world hunger, but it should at least outline the steps that would point us in the right direction. And during this time, your team should take as much time as necessary to prepare, because you want to bring your A game to this presentation. And after the presentation is done, the current FST Student Committee, which is consisting of ourselves, we would select 3 teams to participate in the second round of HackMasters 2030. And in this second round, they would receive expert training, which I have outlined on the next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. So in round 2, the 3 teams that were chosen will receive expert training and guidance. And this is supposed to help with the performance in the actual 12-hour hackathon. Keep in mind again that all of this will be virtual. The training sessions are going to be broken into 2 sections. The first would be for the programmers, which is for the software development training. And the second is for the business development planning, which is for the entrepreneurship side of the team. At this point, you might be a little bit confused as to how you would decide who's going to be a software developer and who's going to be a business planner, but that is going to be discussed a little bit further down in the presentation. In terms of the software development, those sessions will be aimed at helping each team in creating educational gaming tools, which provide interactive experiences. as well as easily implementing the educational content into the gameplay. And then for the business planning, those individuals will receive various tips as to how to create the pitch deck that is supposed to be done during the 12-hour hackathon, as well as how to conduct market research, how to make the product scalable, and so forth. These sessions are going to be valuable since not everyone coming into the hackathon is going to be at the same level of experience. And it also gives you the opportunity during this time period to learn something that is going to be beneficial wherever you take it. And then on the next slide is where I begin to discuss the big day. That is the 12-hour hackathon. Now, during the 12-hour hackathon is where we see each team divided into these two sections that I would have mentioned earlier. That is the software development as well as the entrepreneur team. The entrepreneur side of the team will create a pitch deck, which is a blueprint that will outline the course of how the business will go for the game. The task they have is to create a business plan that not only demonstrates the potential of the learning tool, but also captures the attention of possible investors and partners. And the pitch deck is an essential path of success in guiding how the game will be handled from a business standpoint. But at the same time, on the programming side of the team, they are going to be creating the learning tool from scratch. And on the next slide is where we see what happens at the end of the hackathon after the entrepreneurs would have designed the pitch deck and the software developers would have created the learning game play tool. So next slide. Alrighty. After the no, not that one. The one before the one. Right. Yeah. Thank you. No, right. So after the pitch deck has been created by the entrepreneurship side of the team, and after the software developers have created a draft of the learning tool, the entrepreneurship side of the team would present an overview of the game, as well as how they would transform it into a profitable product, which would be included within the business plan. In terms of the learning tools, in terms of the learning tool that would have been created, each programming team would give the video game to a selected student, well, multiple selected students who would test the product and provide feedback with them having a maximum of 10 minutes. We wanted to include this testing section because ultimately the game is supposed to be used by the students. So by allowing the developers to get tangible feedback that they could apply into the game they are currently developing is absolutely essential. However, in terms of determining who is going to be coming first, second, and third, a lot more emphasis is going to be placed on the pitch deck as opposed to the learning tool, simply because it is hard to create like a completely functioning video game within the 12 hours. So while both aspects, which include the software development and the business development, are equally essential, is better for us to place a little bit more emphasis on the business planning side of things in order to be completely transparent. So on the next slide is where I start looking at the team requirements. Now, there aren't a lot of team requirements. We wanted to keep it as open as possible. Some of the most important things that I would like everyone to know is that, one, in order to participate in HackMasters 2030, you must be a student at the University Cape campus, and you also need to be a part of FST. So I believe if everyone in this room is a part of FST, I see some familiar names, then I should be looking forward to y'all participating. And the age range that we want would be between 16 and 30. In terms of allocation of persons per team, later this week, we are going to be sending around a Google Forms. If you have 5 persons, then that is absolutely fine. You could go ahead and fill the form. However, we do understand and have foreseen the circumstance that some persons may just be by themselves and their friends might not necessarily want to be a part of the hackathon. In that case, you could still fill out the form. And then when we gather other persons who are also interested but don't necessarily have enough individuals to make up a 5-person team, then we would randomly assign you to one of those groups. And a full team would consist of 5 members. We generally tend to advise for this hackathon, since it's the first time, that of the 5-member team, 2 to 3 could be from any FST major. However, each team should at least try to include 1 or 2 CMP majors, because it is going to be a hackathon. So there is some aspect of coding involved. Therefore, you would want someone from computer science, information technology, or even software engineering to handle the software development side of the hackathon. And then on the last slide is where we take a brief look at some of the potential topics that you will be covering. So in all, there are 17 sustainable development goals that the UN has. If you want, you could take a look at those with a quick Google search. However, what we have right here are the 10 that we would have taken the time to find some research articles on. So eventually, when we share this PowerPoint presentation with y'all, you would be able to click that small section that says here that's highlighted in purple, and it would take you to a PDF document which has some research articles that you could use to help determine which problem you want to go with. Because as it is, the UN Sustainable Goals are somewhat vague. Therefore, the research articles are supposed to help you determine exactly where you want to take the learning tool. So let me give you an example. If I was to take cybersecurity, that's a very broad topic, right? And in order to develop a game, you need to sort of create a problem statement first. And to give you an example, the problem statement could be that cybersecurity is a very important aspect, especially with what has been going on recently with all of the crimes that involve the lack of cybersecurity. The most prominent one being the issues that they had at the QEH, where the entire system was shut down and persons could not access medical records. Now, when you want to create a game, it doesn't have to be the most complex thing where you create a 3D world and it's like Grand Theft Auto going on and all type of stuff. Because ultimately, the hackathon is only going to be in 12 hours. Therefore, the video game would, right? Therefore, we would need to simplify the video game. So an example of that would just be to create a text-based adventure game or a decision-making game which teaches persons how to properly approach cybersecurity tasks. And at this point, I would now like to hand over to Isaiah, who's going to be looking at the schedule.
Thank you very much. You can go on to the next slide, please, and thank you. All right, good night, everyone. My name's Isaiah Carrington. So currently we're just going to be focused on the schedule right now. So we're going to launch the entire project, which is today, July 30th. And we're going to have team submissions and presentations creations going from July 30th to August 11th. This is when you will submit your team names and you will start working on your presentations. This will be your business proposal, not really business proposal, but how you're going to like study the problem and then work on it and go forward from there. On August 16th, this is where we're going to have the finalist team selected, and then we're going to broadcast the winners. On August 18th to 31st, we're going to have the expert training for finalist teams. As was mentioned by Kashan, you guys will go through expert training from professionals based on the field you're in, which is either the programming side or the business side, the marketing side. And then on September 2nd, we'll have our in-person live 12-hour hackathon at Animekon. All right, so the rewards, the prizes would have been briefly touched on before, but here are them again. For first place, we have $1,500 for the team. For second place, we're going to have $1,000 for the team. And lastly, well, not lastly, but for third place, we're going to have $500 for the team. This will be distributed evenly amongst the team members. So hackathon guidelines is broken into 2 sections. This will be the presentation, where you will present where you will first choose 1 to 3 problems from the list that we would have looked at previously, and then you'll create a presentation explaining the problem that was chosen, where you provide context and explain why it's important. Your learning solution, which would be like the draft of your game you're learning to. And lastly, the target market. This is if you're targeting children, adults, middle-aged, etc. Then on the day, we're gonna have the live hackathon now. This is a 12-hour project development where you will create the pitch deck. This is what you're going to be presenting. You'll also start working on the video game, and then we'll go through the testing and the judging. So code of conduct, we expect you to be original. Using copyrighted material without permission or plagiarizing is strictly prohibited. We want you to maintain your integrity. We want you to comply to all rules and guidelines set by the organizers. Any intellectual property that you do develop will belong to the respective teams. We expect you to have respectful behavior and to be inclusive to all participants. And as stated, we also expect you to adhere to all the codes and the rules. Violating the code of conduct, rules, or any other laws that we may have in place, or engaging in any other unsporting behavior will result in the disqualification of the entire team. You can go on to the next slide. All right, so general guidelines, we expect you to have respectful and inclusive communication, which means that no matter who you're paired with, who your teammates are, we expect you to include them in all of your activities and be kind and respectful. Collaboration and teamwork. Teams should aim to create and maintain a collaborative and supportive environment. There's no need to tear each other down. You're all competing, you're all working together to achieve your, to get the prize, to win, right? To solve issues. Time management, as mentioned, it is relatively tight. You have about 2 or so weeks for the first proposal, the presentation, and then of course, actually programming now and the video game, you only have 12 hours for that. So time management is extremely important. So you need to make sure that you manage your time effectively, especially during the preparation period. And then more general stuff will be the sportsmanship, and be sure to have fun and enjoy the entire process. And then the last set of the guidelines we're going to go over would be feedbacks and improvements. This is the first event of this type that we will be hosting. So any kind of feedback, any ideas that you might have, suggestions, plans for the future, any of that, you can always bring it to us. There will be a form that you can submit. You can fill out a survey afterwards based on your experience and what you didn't like, and then focus on team effort. Collaborating with outside individuals who are not participants and who have not been selected in terms of like not your teachers, in the case of the people that will be giving you the professional training, is strictly prohibited. Ideally, using pre-written code specifically intended for the application is also prohibited. We expect you to develop everything that you need during that 12 hours. And then lastly, paying for outside professional assistance is strictly prohibited. And yes, that brings us to the end of the presentation.
Okay, no. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to our speakers, Keishon and Isaiah. You guys, once again, did a fantastic job. And we hope to see you guys sign up your teams, and we look forward to working with you all.